Good morning, boys and girls. It's Miss Flegner, and we are in our last week of school this week. So I thought it would be great if we could listen to our story, Last Day Blues by Julie Dannenberg. You might recognize some of these illustrations, and you might recognize the author's name because this author actually wrote another book that a lot of you really enjoy called First Day Jitters. And this book actually has the same character, the teacher, in this story as well. So let's start by looking at the illustration. There's a lot of different things happening in this picture. So take a minute to look and see some things that you notice here. All right, let's start our story. While you're listening to the story, I want you to be thinking closely about story elements, characters, setting where, setting when, problem, and solution. So let's keep those things in mind while we listen to our story, Last Day Blues. On the Monday morning before the Friday that was the last day of school, Mrs. Hartwell took attendance. She sighed as she called out the last name. I'm going to miss all of you, she said. The kids nodded in agreement. I'm going to miss my friends, said Shannon. I'm going to miss Daisy, said Dan. I'm going to infer from this picture that Daisy must be the class pet. I'm going to miss chocolate milk and pizza for lunch, said Joe. Everyone felt a little blue thinking about the last day of school, even Daisy. That afternoon during recess, the students talked as they hung out on the jungle gym. Mrs. Hartwell said she's going to miss us, said Alexandra, swinging from a bar. We should get a present to cheer her up, said Eddie, hanging upside down by his knees. But what could they get her? I could give her the rest of my sandwich. It's my mom's bologna special, said Josh. Or a coffee cup. Or a new pen, the kind with feathers and beads. The students thought and thought, but couldn't come up with a single idea that they all agreed on. We'll think of something tomorrow, Eddie assured everyone as they lined up at the drinking fountain. On the Tuesday before the Friday that was the last day of school, Mrs. Hartwell read the final page of their last read-aloud book. I'm going to miss circle time, said Mrs. Hartwell. I'm going to miss science, said Emily. I'm going to miss seeing Mrs. Hartwell wear her safety goggles during science, said Jack, giggling. And so before they got too sad, Mrs. Hartwell put on her safety goggles one last time, just for fun. We definitely need to cheer Mrs. Hartwell up, said Andy during recess as he jumped out on a swing. Any ideas about a present? Eddie asked. Nope, they all answered back. On the Wednesday before the Friday that was the last day of school, Mrs. Hartwell brought in her super-duper sugar cookies with extra frosting. I'm going to miss snack time, but I can't wait for barbecues by the pool, said Jack. I'm going to miss recess, but I can't wait to play hide and seek outside after dinner, said Alexandra. I'll miss school, but I can't wait for summer vacation, said Josh. The class discussed their summer plans and drowned their last day blues with another round of milk and sugar cookies. I don't know whether to be happy or sad today, Andy said the minute they all arrived at the jungle gym. Mrs. Hartwell is sad, said Olivia. She probably doesn't want the year to end. While we're swimming, she'll be reading her old lesson plans, said Walker. And while we're playing, she'll be trying to remember the fun times we had this year, said Dan. And that's when an idea zipped, zapped, and zinged through Eddie's brain. I know exactly what will cheer her up, Eddie said, jumping down from the jungle gym. The class agreed it was perfect. Let's stop and make a prediction. What do you predict that the students will buy for the teacher? What kind of gift do you think they might give her? So let's stop and think what might happen next. On the Thursday before the Friday that was the last day of school, Eddie raised his hand after Mrs. Hartwell started language arts. "We need some privacy, please," he said. And so Mrs. Hartwell took down bulletin boards with her back to the class. She never even peeped. Well, only once. On the morning of the Friday that was the last day of school, the students dashed into the classroom. They snapped open the shades for the very last time. They did their chores for the very last time. They fed Daisy for the very last time. So it looks like the students are getting ready to clean up the classroom. So it looks like the students all came together and wrote this great note to Mrs. Hartwell. And I know it's from the students because I see that they did all these really cool illustrations and they put their names on them. So let's see if we can read the letter. "The last day of school makes us so blue. We'll miss recess and pizza and reading too. We'll miss Daisy and cookies and friendship true, snack time and science and learning new. We'll miss spelling bees for our test review, and groundhogs that play peekaboo. The year's been great, a big wahoo. There are many things to miss, it's true, but mostly what we'll miss is you." Later on during recess, Eddie said, "I think Mrs. Hartwell likes her present." "I just hope it helps," Margaret said. "Poor Mrs. Hartwell," they all said sadly as they pictured their final goodbye. "Teachers must hate the last day of school." And if you look at the illustration over here, it looks like there's a lot of teachers standing outside waving goodbye to the buses, and they all look very, very sad. Some of them are crying, some of them are waving away to the students. I wonder if this is really what happens, or if this was what the students think happens. And then it was time. The bell rang. "Goodbye," the students called out as they rushed out the door. "Goodbye," Mrs. Hartwell called after them. And then she returned to her empty classroom. "It's just you and me, Daisy," she said. "I'm sure going to miss them this summer. But I can't wait for vacation." Oh boy, so if you look at the teachers now, it doesn't really look like any of them are crying or upset. It looks like they all actually have some party lays on and they're all dancing in a line. I don't think the teachers look too sad that it's the last day of school here. Oh, and over here we see Mrs. Hartwell and her family enjoying their vacation. So your job today, boys and girls, is you are going to write about how you're feeling about your last day and your last week of school. You can submit your assignment on Seesaw when you're all finished.